This is Inspired Love Talk with Marta, episode number 2. I didn't actually know that there was actually going to be an episode number 2, but there is. So I guess the reason I created or decided to keep going with these is because I loved about doing a podcast that is going to introduce people that I think are amazing, have got amazing energy, have got amazing insight, and not just that, but have got great plans of actions, got great techniques and the journeys, because when I share these with you, you'll be able to follow into their footsteps and you'll be able to feel inspired and be able to then move forward, hopefully implementing some of these beautiful things that we're going to talk about and start living your rich and full life. So, and today's guest will be able to do all of those things and more. So today I'm joined with the beautiful Kylie Fisher from at Lady Red Live. Thank you so much for joining me, Kylie.
Hi everybody. Morning, Marta. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad, lovely. I'm so glad to have you on here because you are all of those things. Like, you are great energy, you're so inspiring, and you and I have known each other for less than a year. I reckon it's about 9 months that we've known each other, but we've spent quite a bit of time together. And when we first met, we didn't actually meet in person, we actually met online. And the first time that we actually connected in person, when we met other people, they actually thought that you and I were friends for years. Like, do you remember those comments? They're just like, well, you guys have been friends for forever and a day. And our relationship since then has been really, really amazing. There's been a few ups and downs, but like any relationship. But what I found from you, Kylie, was that you've always been such high energy. And when I heard that you were moving to the Gold Coast and all the rest of it, and I heard this story of Kylie, you've always lived a very rich and full life. So, you know, over the past 9 months, we've spent quite a bit of time together and got to know each other quite well. And you have done such amazing things. You have worked on a ship as a performer and an entertainer, and you've traveled all around the world, and you have just met the most amazing people. You have got the most amazing stories to tell. Like, I don't think I can ever get bored with you when I sit down with you, because I'm just like, honey, tell me more. I'm like, I'm living my life vicariously through you. Like, this is just a bit of a dream when I listen to you talk. And you're also so confident. You are one of the most confident, strong-willed and beautiful people at the same time that I could ever have met. And it's so refreshing for a woman to carry yourself the way that you do, and for you to achieve the things that you actually have in your 35-ish years. So I guess you've done amazing things. Now you're a life coach, and now you're coaching. So when we met, we had a lot of things to talk about, and we were very much on the same wavelength in terms of our values, which I think made us turn into glue very, very quickly. So I guess I'll let people out there know your story, I guess, prior to us meeting, and what you've experienced so far.
Thank you so much for all of that, Marta. It's always amazing to hear someone else's version of what you live, right? And kind of what you just said at the beginning about me being this ball of energy. Literally only the other day, somebody said to me, Kylie, sometimes people think you're like a hurricane, and because there's so much energy. But then this person said, but when you get into the center of it, they realize that you're really grounded and there's a peace about you. And I was like, yes, I'll take that. Because it was such an amazing analogy. I was like, I've never thought of it like that, where a hurricane can be so look like they're out of control, but it's because they're so fast and on and go. But then there's actually such a stability from where that comes from. And that stability, guys, is from the journey and from walking out this last season. And even like Marta said, like, moving from Sydney to the Gold Coast in the pandemic, Marta and I, our first conversation together was me in hotel quarantine and having a chit chat on the phone. And that was our first connection. And then from that, we were able to meet. And when we met, it literally was like we'd known each other for years. It was crazy how two pods from other parts of Australia could come together and have such a great connection and such a great synergy. And so from that, like, Marta watched me as I grew up here, and I started to hustle trying to get work as a singer. And I think on the sideline, she was just blown away at how quickly stuff happened. And from my point of view, it was just me being assertive and going, this is what I want, this is what I need. I have to pay rent, and I'm not going to go get a retail job. I'm going to keep committed to my passions and the goals that I have in my life. So let's backtrack a little bit within the last 12 months. So I've been home in Australia since March 30. So it's just been over a year. And prior to that, for 4 years, I was working as a piano bar entertainer over in America, performing on the cruise liners over there for all the Americans. And it was go, go, go. It was 6 nights a week, 1 day off. And I went from contract to contract to contract to contract. And to be honest with you guys, you know, the reason we're talking about this is about relationships. So the reason I began cruise ships in 2017 was because I was trying to break up with my boyfriend at the time, and he couldn't get the clue that I wanted to go our separate ways. So I jumped on a ship to get away from the situation. And I realized that I was running away without having to deal with the problem. And so the problem actually wasn't the guy. The problem was actually what I needed to deal with. And so that's been a really long process. So I went on ships 2017, 2018, 2019, and then 2020, the pandemic happens. It forces me to come home to Australia and to really evaluate what the next step for my life was. And so over that time, I was with another guy on a ship, because it's really easy to have a ship boyfriend. If you are from ship life, you might be able to relate with me on that. The joke about relationships on land and the jokes about relationships on a cruise ship is when you live on land, you date someone, go on a couple of dates, a couple of months pass, you might become official, and then maybe by 12 months' time, you decide to move in with each other. Let me just tell you guys, cruise ship life, you're on the ship for one night, you're jet lagged. The next night you go and hang out at crew bar, you meet someone, and in a week's time, they've pretty much moved into your cabin. Let's just put it out there. Like, that's literally how it works.
It moves so quick. You got nowhere to go. Hey, it's just, that's it.
You've got nowhere to hide. You're in each other's space 24/7. So if your love language isn't quality time, and it's going to be really hard because you're in each other's pockets the whole time. So that was a big thing for me, where it was, do I need to change my Wi-Fi to thing?
I think so. I think
I will.
Hold on. I'm kind of losing you.
Yeah, I've just changed it over. Hold on.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
There you are.
So,
yep,
so through that time, I realized how much I actually had to dive deep into the relationship repeating errors, if that makes sense.
The patterns.
By the way, everybody, it's 11:11. Let's just go. Blessings, blessings, blessings. It's 11:11. Okay.
It is 11:11.
Yeah, the recurring patterns. And so I decided to, that relationship went its separate ways, and probably the most depressed I've ever been in my life, probably the lowest I've ever been in my life, of going, I was ready to move. I was ready to lay down my life in Australia and move to another country and support this person and pick up a life together that I thought was all I was called to do, pretty much. And, you know, there was bigger plans out there than what I had chosen to settle with. But I did have to do a lot of healing. And Marta and I have had conversations about that healing and tapping into how I somehow in my, you know, small amount of relationships that I've had with the few boyfriends that I've had, they were always emotionally unavailable, and they always had this baggage with other women or exes that they hadn't dealt with. And it was like I kept attracting the same kind of man. And so through my healing, I was able to realize that I needed to say goodbye to all those people, like say goodbye to those men, and really sit with my hands on my heart and just speak out their names and totally let them go. But the biggest thing is when you actually let them go, they can actually sometimes like try to come back in. And so Marta was actually in that process. We were on our bicycles going for a ride from Bigger Waters all the way to Burleigh. And I said, babe, like such and such has just reached out to me. And I was so excited. I thought my fairy tale of moving to an island and living the island life was going to happen. And literally, it was only because I'd closed off, I'd healed my end, that person was reaching out. And so I got really emotionally involved. And that was about November last year, 2020. And for about 72 hours, I invested back into what I thought was going to pick back up again. And then it got shut down like that, boom. And I remember messaging Marta and going, it's over. He's blocked me again. It's done. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I had to do is I had to make a decision in those next moments to shut it off from my end. And sometimes people, that is the hardest spot, is to shut it down from your end and actually lie it down, put it in the grave, and actually put the soil on top and be done. No more going back. It is done. And when you do that, then you begin to heal and become whole. And then that journey begins again. And like Marta said, I'm 35. I am the happiest 35-year-old I thought I could ever be. I remember turning 30 and being like, why am I single? Like, why am I not married with a family and living the family life? And now at 35, I'm like, I am the wholest I have ever been in my life, which means when that man comes into my world, he's actually going to meet the best version of me. And he knows that I don't have to do any more healing because I'm so solid in who I am. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I think like maybe from that we could do some questions between each other. I think would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, Kylie, what I found super interesting, and this is why I wanted you to come and have this chat with me, and I hope that other people can take so much away from this, but when we met, even though you were this really beautiful, bubbly person, full of life, full of energy, full of everything, and you were like this tornado. I remember you turning up at my house one day, and it was when Seth just moved in, and you're like, I'm here, and I'm like, whoa, okay, well, she's definitely here. You can't miss you. You really can't. You are just literally just energy, just bursting. And, you know, once I got to know you, and you were still this beautiful, bubbly person, but then you really showed me this softer side of you. It's that inside cyclone stuff. And you really confided in me this big thing that was actually holding on to you. When this guy came back into your life, you're just like, look, I have to tell somebody, this is what's going on. I shut the door on this, but it's just come back, and I'm trying not to get too excited by it, but I am, because maybe it's meant to be. And and then we start as women, I don't know whether men do this as well, I'm sure they do, but what starts to happen is we get given like one little bit of something, like one little moment, and then we run away with it in our heads, and all of a sudden we're starting to create plans, and then all of a sudden we're just like in this hole of, oh well, in a year we're going to be married and we're going to have kids, and I'm going to be moving here, you're going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then you just like, and then you snap back into reality, and then you try and tell yourself, oh, but I'm not getting too excited about it, right? we all do it. And then what happens is that in the reality, we're only just being given like one little piece of bread. And then when all of a sudden, say something doesn't work out like we wanted it to, or all of a sudden, like in your case, like the person that you thought was coming back into your life, like literally blocked you on all the socials. And you were just like, what? Like, I don't understand. And it completely broke you. And I know that it would have broken me as well, because that was the dream, right? That was the dream. And for you, it was like you'd shut the door on it as well. So the thing that generally happens is when you try and shut the door on something, and I saw this with you, like almost instantly, when you try and shut that door on someone, it comes back to test you.
Yeah.
And it will come back and it will say, are you really over it? Like, are you sure? Because I'm just going to give you this one little test just to see whether you're actually over it. And whenever you think you're over it, and you just go back in for more, because you're just like, maybe there is still hope.
Yeah.
And through all of this, I found that, this real vulnerable person. And, we all need to be vulnerable. It's not to say that, by discovering this about you, it makes you less of a person. If anything, it makes you more of a person, and it gives you layers to your heart and your soul. And love is one of those things that you can feel very vulnerable, and a lot of people do shut themselves off to loving because they have been hurt, or they don't want to be hurt again, or it's easier not to, and it's easier just to stay strong and to be able to control the things that you can control, rather than to lean into this unknown.
Yeah.
And I think from when we first met, the one thing that you mentioned to me very, very early on is that you said, look, you knew that you were picking the wrong men to be with. And it was one of those things that you just like, I just know this is where I want to go. And you had this vision of what you wanted for your life in the future. You just like, this is what I've done. I know that this hasn't been working. And a lot of us make those mistakes for all of our dating lives, for all of our love lives. We may be in a pattern that we don't know that we're in a pattern in. And you were so self-actualized, or self-actualized enough to be able to notice those things, and to be able to go, okay, cool, that's not what I want. And then to kind of push through the things that you knew then into something else. And I think this is why I want other people to hear your story, is because you, as a really, really strong woman, have also been hurt. So I guess now for you to be able to go back in and like love again, or to love yourself again, what have you learned since we met, or since you've gotten like off the ship, and how have you changed?
I think one thing that has changed and shifted probably just in the last 4 months is that I'm okay to wait. And I feel like that wasn't a part of my journey before. My insecurity before was that I know how I know how cool I am. I know how talented I am. I know how much I'm great to get along with. Like, I should be a bomb. Like, someone should want to pick me up and whisk me away. But then I realized, and this is just for my personal walk, guys, this might not be for you, but for me, it was that, okay, now I am so settled in who I am. I know that that man's going to come along exactly when it's supposed to happen. But am I willing to wait? Because at the beginning of this year, I went on a Hinge date.
Do you want to tell us about that?
And it was a disaster. And but it was so good because I was able to write in my journal all the things I didn't like about the dude. But I wasn't being mean. Well, I was being mean, but it didn't matter because he's never going to read my damn journal. But it was so pivotal for me to go, yeah, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that he couldn't hum in tune because I just wanted to punch him in the throat and tell him to shut up.
But that, okay, to anybody listening right now, that may seem really, really harsh. Like, would you be willing just to go into with broadly into your experience with this Hinge date, because this is a cracker. Like, out of all the stories I've heard, this is a absolute cracking story.
Okay, so I finally made a profile, which I'd been telling Marta I did not want to do. And I finally succumbed. And I remember texting her and I'm like, I'm on it. So, people, I think I spoke to about 35 guys before I finally had one that actually turned up. And I was like, number one, how do I have to talk to 35 guys before I can actually have one that actually commits to showing up? So I did the good thing. I did the security thing in me and said to this guy, "I'll meet me at the pub that's just down the road from my house." Because it means at least if it was a shocker, I could gap it and get home without having to get an Uber. I could just walk home. So it was, it was good banter. And now I'm great with banter. I'm a performer. I can talk to any Joe Blow because I know how to have a conversation. It was good banter. I'm not going to say it wasn't good banter. But, by the end of the night, when you've only had a couple of drinks and you're vomiting on the bar floor and you're getting kicked out of the venue, and then security says to me, "Your boyfriend's getting kicked out." And I go to the security, "He's not my boyfriend. I met him on Hinge."
First date.
First date. I'm like, I met him a couple of hours ago. Like, can I stay with you guys? Is that all right? Anyway, so it was just tragic. And so, he tried to keep small talk over the next week. But even when I wanted to start speaking to him about where were his goals and where was his vision in life, nothing lined up. So for me, it was just a definite closed door of like, I actually don't even need to take this guy on a second date. And can we just be clear there? I just said, I don't need to take this guy on a second date. Girlfriends, that's not how it works in the first place. Let him woo you, boo-boo. All right, anyway. So, so he tried to have conversations and I just was like, and I just literally wrote, take care. And for me, that's closure. I'm done. And so I was able to write down in my journal, like all the things that didn't light me up. And I was like, yeah, do I want to settle for that? Like, am I going to settle for that and be content with, he's a good looking guy and he used to do stuff in music, but we have nothing in common? Hey, Dario. Hi. Or do I want to just wait and be so content with waiting? And people who are listening, and like before I came off the ships, like I've now been single and not kissed anyone for over a year and not gone any further than that for over a year. And for some people, that's like, what the heck? But this is my journey. This is my walk. But it's like, I'm going to just keep committed to that because I feel so in control in where I'm going, that it's like, can I just wait that little moment longer? Can I just be patient that little moment longer? Maybe I can't be patient on the freeways in Queensland, but I can be patient in my relationship status.
And that is actually almost unheard of to most people our age. It's just like, well, what do you mean that hasn't happened? But what's amazing is that you've actually just gone, actually, this is what I want for myself. I don't actually care what like society thinks. This is what feels really good for me, and I'm just going to run with this regardless of other people's opinions. And
that's it.
To even share that in a live with me is also very, very vulnerable of you, and so brave of you, because I hope that by people hearing that this is what you're doing and you're doing it for yourself, other people will actually be able to walk away from this going, well, actually, I don't have to do it like everybody else is doing it. And then truly actually look inside here and go, okay, well, what's going to fulfill me? What's the right thing? Is sleeping with the next 10 men in the next month gonna make me feel better? Well, I mean, in the moment, probably, sure, but long term, it's not really a solution. And I think the fact that you're doing exactly what feels right for you is just so good, because it must be really fulfilling in here.
I have to say it's been a journey. And when I made that commitment last year, when I broke up with my boyfriend and I made that commitment to myself, I didn't know what that was going to look like. But now looking a year down the track, I know that I made the right decision because I've never been so happy in my own skin and been content with who I am and the way that I show up. And Darielle's like, yes, yes, queen.
I love it. I love it. Keep those comments going, please.
Yeah, guys, like if you're really interested in what we're talking about, jump on, like pop some questions on there if you want, or let us know that you're hearing what we're trying to share about.
Mm.
One thing that I learned in the relationship healing workshops that I did for 8 weeks online was that, and it was a really good picture for me because I needed to see it in a way that I would understand. And it was that it was described as I'm a garden, and then my partner is also a garden. But what we get to do is to grab a seed from each garden and plant it in another garden, and then we begin to grow that flowers and that garden together. And for me, it was like, that's what I needed to hear because I'd always felt like half and half equals one, but it's actually you have to be whole. 1 and 1 equals 1. Whole. So you've got to be so
100%.
whole in who you are. You can't think like, I just need him. Like, I just need that guy. Like, that guy's going to fulfill me. Like, he's going to fill. He's filling me. Girlfriend,
Yes.
that is codependency. You want to be so whole that you're like, nah, I haven't messaged him because he's going to message me. Boop, 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 boop. There's one other book that I read many, many years ago, and I always keep it in my iPad for whenever I need to like slap myself across the face. And it's like, be ready for this one, people. Why Men Love Bitches.
Why Men Love Bitches. I'm going to write that down.
Now, this woman, the girl who wrote it, she interviewed men and asked them what makes girls easy and why don't they chase them. Girls, it is so good.
Okay, recommend that book. I'll pop that into the
yeah,
thing.
and it's not saying like the bitch as a bitch. It's talking about knowing who you are, knowing your stance. Like I remember
and your standards and your boundaries, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But I remember my ex of 5 years ago, like he'd get drunk with the boys and expect me to come and pick him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd arrive and he wouldn't get in my car and I'd have to literally fight him to get in the car. And I would just wait until he got in the damn car. And then I realized years later, I'd do the same thing, go and pick his ass up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He wouldn't get in my car and I'd drive off. And then it got to the point where I wouldn't pick him up. I'd say, get an Uber, because I was growing, but actually I was growing in resentment of him rather than growing in the fact of I already knew who I was. So, that's all in the journey.
Yeah. So what would you say to anybody out there right now that's probably in a relationship, in probably a toxic relationship, and they keep repeating the same patterns, keep doing the same thing, keep accepting the shittiness that the other person is kind of making them like do, or they're just actually not respecting themselves in the way that they probably should, but they just don't know what to do. Like, because when you're in a shitty relationship and it's hard because you're just like, I want to get out, but I love them and I don't know what to do. I literally don't know what to do. Everybody's saying leave him, it's hard, I'm confused, like all of those things. What would you say to somebody that's listening to this right now?
One of my best friends, when I stayed for 5 years, and I probably should have not even started the relationship. One of my best friends said to me, don't call me to talk about him until you've broken up with him. And that was a long time. Like, we were able to talk about other stuff, but I wasn't allowed to talk about the relationship because she knew so early on that I should have left, but I stayed because I was scared of being 30 years old and single rather than leaving and being okay with being 30 and single. And that's why I say being 35 now and single is the happiest I've ever been in my life, because it was so hard. It was so hard to be single and 30 and not be around everyone else who was happy in their relationships. And so learning that was that you will stay for as long as you can take it. And I always say the words, until you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when you make change. That's when you make change, being sick and tired of it. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
it's,
think
and that's scary.
it is. And I think there's a lot of fear of when people know that they're in the wrong relationship, what they'll do is one of the thoughts that they have is, oh, but I don't want to be alone. But I'm 35, I'm 40, what are people going to think? Like, I still don't have kids and it feels like I'm not going to have anything. But you're staying in this really shitty place and allowing yourself to feel shit rather than being able to detach yourself from it, learn about who it is, who you are, and find out the things that make you happy. And a lot of the time when people are in relationship after relationship and they don't give themselves the space to be by themselves, they actually don't know who they are. So they don't
That's
know
it.
what they like, they don't know what they like to do, they don't like being alone because they always need somebody else there with them doing the thing, and it feels really scary. So they'll know that one thing's not working for them, and they'll be in a relationship 2 or 3 months down the track again, and it's just like it's repeating that pattern. And I think the key to all of this is be brave enough to be by yourself, be brave enough to try and find out what you like, be brave enough to find out what's going to heal you, be brave enough to do something new in your life, like go join a gym, go do Pilates, go do a painting class, start to find out the things that you like and the things that you don't like. Because with you, I know that you already know what you like and what you don't like. You have a career, you've always been driven, but there are other people out there that hang on to relationships because they have low self-worth, because they always feel like they need somebody else to lean on. So I think for me, if anybody out there wants to leave a relationship but they're scared to be alone right now, the key to all of this is try to find out who you are. Go and make some new friends. Go to the gym class, go and join a sport. Find, if you don't like the sport, great, then you find out what you don't like, but start to be an independent person slowly. And and have your friends to support you, and have your family. If you do have great family, then go and talk to them, but just have that support around you. And then try and do the scary new thing, because the more scary new things you do as a person, you then get the confidence to do more of the scary things, because you're like, oh, that wasn't so hard. But I think in your case, Kylie, like for you've always had the confidence. But I think when I look at confidence in 3 layers. So there's the confidence of like that, there's the top confidence that everybody can see how you are. So in your case, I'm just like, look, she's bubbly, she's energetic, she has so much confidence, and it's how other people perceive you in terms of confidence. And then there's like the skill set confidence. So it's just like, you can sing and you've got these skills and you can do X, Y, and Z and everything's amazing and you have a great job and you do that well, that the skill set. And then the third layer is that deep self inner confidence that I think a lot of people try to get to. And I know that in your journey, you had the top 2. You had those top 2 tiers, and you just needed to find that third one, that real core confidence that once you have that, nobody can take that away from you. And you have tried so hard over the last 9-12 months to get that, because you were just like, I've got all of it. I know you've just said before, like, you're a catch, who wouldn't want to be with you? And I totally agree. I'm like, you are so freaking amazing as a person, as a friend, as somebody that's spiritual, clever, quirky, hilarious, like all of those things. And you were just searching for that bottom bit. And I think you've got that. And to anybody else out there listening to this, I just want them to know, like, that's the Mecca. If you can get to that bit of confidence, to love yourself so much, knowing that whether or not you have somebody with you, whether you don't, you're going to be okay, because you have you and you've got yourself to trust, and you've gotten to that point, Kylie. And I'm just like, holy moly, like, I have conversations with you and we've spent hours on the phone and out together, and you've got it, girlfriend. Like, And I just want anybody else out there listening to know that this is actually possible for anybody. If you're kind of thinking, well, no, that's for everybody else. That's for, you know, her, but look, she's already had the first 2 layers. It's just like, I'm going to have to do all this work to get down to this like core bottom layer. It's like, you've got to start. And this is the thing. It's just like with anything, you really just have to start. Just do one thing. Just do one thing today that will make you step out of your comfort zone. And even like, I heard you, I noticed that just before you actually mentioned to me, you just like, you journaled on that guy that you went out with. And you're just like, wow, I managed to like write down and journal all the things that I didn't want in a person. And I think if anybody else out there is looking for a partner and wants, but doesn't know what they want, this is the thing. Like a lot of the time I coach people and I ask them, what would your ideal partner be like? Like what qualities would they have? Would they be great with people? Would they be friendly? Would they be polite? They'd be driven. They'd have a career. They'd be caring. Like they'd like to go on adventures, go on holidays. Like they'd be independent. Like I get people to write all of these things down. I'm just like, you tell me what you want in your ideal person. And a lot of the time, well, if they do know, then I say to them, I'm like, okay, so the best way for you to find that partner is to be all those things. You've got to start being all those things. If that's what you want, then the person that's looking for you is looking for exactly the same thing. You've got to start being that person. And if you don't know what you want, start journaling like you did. You're just like, look, I know that I don't want somebody that gets drunk at a bar. I know that it's going to be this person that has all the qualities that I don't want. So if you don't know what you want, start to write down the qualities that you just don't want, literally. And that's what you've done, which is like absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
I think anybody hearing your story to know like the way that you used to behave and your patterns have, through even your own work, like you didn't even work with a coach, you've done self-coaching because you are a life coach anyway. But not everybody can do that. And I think that's pretty amazing in its own right too. So I mean, to anybody out there listening right now, I guess if they know that they've been caught in these patterns, if you can inspire them in any possible way, what would you say to them right now? If they're sitting here going, I'm in a real shitty spot right now, and I'm like, I don't know how to get out, and I'm just like, I'm looking at these girls and I'm looking at this YouTube live, or this, I'm listening to it on Spotify or whatever. It's just like, what words of wisdom and inspiration can you give to the people listening?
I just keep feeling with that last step that you just said about the confidence is that being alone doesn't mean that you're lonely. And that's been the biggest healing for me in this last 12 months. In July last year, I took a contract at the snow. We have a few mountains in Australia that have snow, not many, but there's a few. And I went down there for 6 weeks. And it was a test to myself that I could have my own room and not make any connections with any guys. And I would just be there to focus on myself and what I was there to do. And through that 6 weeks, I was able to heal and then move up to the Gold Coast and start my new life. Because prior to this, I was scared to live alone. I was scared to be sitting at home on my couch and being bored, so needing someone to come over just to have someone to be companionship with. I had to get to the point of being okay with being on my own. And Marta can witness this. When we first met, I made my home so homely that sometimes I didn't even want to go out. Like I'd be so happy just to sit on my couch. And I actually got to the point at the beginning of this year, like January, February, March, where I kind of didn't want to go out because I was so content in my own space with myself, listening to my thoughts and having ideas and doing things and going for my morning walks on my own. I didn't need to do those things with people. I was so content with my own space and who I am. And that's the strongest place to be. And that goes back to what I said before about that's when you're whole. And that's when those three confident tiers all line up and everything's in alignment. I think that's it. Like being alone is not being lonely.
Yeah, and I think from you being on a ship where you're constantly surrounded by people, that like there is always noise 24 hours a day, it literally doesn't stop. So you've gone from that to literally, and your home is absolutely beautiful. I walked in here and in there and I was like, oh man, I'm surprised you never want to leave. And but then, you know, you spoke about like the thoughts and the creativeness, and I think as soon as you can start to be alone and you can do all of the things without other people, that's when you start to realize what it is that you want. You start to be okay with being by yourself. You start to get creative. And if you've never been creative, it's probably because you've never been alone, to be honest, because creativity, to do anything creative, you do have to spend that time with your mind almost wandering into that other space. And if you have other people around you all the time, well, that's going to be impossible. I
Yeah.
know that I know that ever since I moved to Airlie Beach, I have had more alone time than ever before, and I'm absolutely loving it. The first week was horrible. I have to tell you, Kylie, I was just like, what have I done? This is horrible. But I've never had the space to really be alone by myself. And even though I've craved it, there was always something going on. And after about a week of just having this alone time, my brain just exploded with ideas. And I'm just like, well, we can do this. And this is how this podcast started too. Like if I was still back on the Gold Coast and I was still filled with 100 million things, then this podcast wouldn't not be here right now. This interview would not be happening. And I think, you know, when we talk about like the changes that we make in our relationships with ourselves, with other people, there's this flow on effect, and it's absolutely magical because relationships, love, dating, all of those things, they are just one part of our life. But if we start to really peel back the layers, we realize that everything's actually involved, like ourselves, the way that we view ourselves, the way that we do our work, what we do, the way that we feel, how spiritual we are, all of those things. So it's like every single part of your journey, even though it has been related to somebody breaking your heart and you having to then really sit down hard and realize, you know, what changes do I need? It hasn't just changed your love life, it's changed so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
And
has.
yeah, I think so. And like I see the way that you perform, the way that you go about your life. It's not just on that surface level anymore. It's just like the conversations you and I have when we're on the phone, they're so deep and they're so beautiful. And I have no doubt that whoever comes along into your life, like, is just going to be like, even now, like your standard of a partner has changed and you're just like, there's no way I'm going to take this. There's no way I'm going to take that. And you know what? And if I don't find them anytime soon, I'm totally okay because I know I'm awesome, like really, really deep down. I'm just not, I don't tell people that I'm awesome, even though I kind of do. But deep down, you know that you're awesome. You know that awesomeness, nobody can actually take away from you. And no man, even if you did find a partner and they decided to part ways, you'd just be like, well, I still have me. And that's the most beautiful. And that's the most beautiful thing. And for anyone listening right now, it's like the most confident people out there do this work. It's like you look at the Gary V's, the Mel Robbins, the whoever it is that you guys might follow, like they seriously believe deep down that this is who they are. It's that deep level confidence. They just don't rock up and start to say all of these words and then go, well, hopefully one day I'm going to believe it. They actually do believe it because they've done the work, and you've done this work. And I am so happy that like you've joined me on the show and that you've shared your story. And I hope that anybody else out there listening can take this away and be able to implement a little bit into their life if they're feeling stuck, if they're feeling that they're not ready to date, or they've been hurt, or they just don't know how best to move forward because they're kind of like stuck, and maybe they're repeating the same things over and over again and they're getting the same types of situations. I think what I want to do is I want to normalize it. and I want to make sure that this happens to the best people, like even beautiful performers that have traveled halfway around the world and done everything, and they do seem confident, and yet, you know, there is that soft core that we all have to work on. So I guess at the end of the day, it's our choice. It is our choice whether or not we do the work, but the happiest people do the work.
Yeah. And you know, the quote says insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So if you are repeating patterns and you are having the same results, go figure.
Yeah.
You got to change something. You got to change something.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, don't feel like you're stuck or you feel like you don't want to love again. And this is one of the biggest things that I like to tell people, is that the reason people don't go back and date is because they've been burnt, and they're just like, I just don't want to feel the feeling, like it's just better that I'm just going to be by myself. And I can tell you, like, if you can do the work on yourself, if you can really level down deep and just really dig deep and really do that work, the love that you're supposed to have will actually come back to you. Like there's no doubt about that. Is like, and I truly believe that.
100%.
And you know, it may not be today or tomorrow or in 6 months or even a year, but the work that you do for yourself is going to be worth it for its own sake. You know, you're going to be a lot happier in your head and your heart, and you're going to love living life instead of wondering, why is it that you don't have a partner? Why is it that I'm 35 and single? Why is it that everybody else gets the girl? Why is it that everybody else gets the guy? Why is it that I don't have a family yet? Like all of those things. And what will happen is that those negative thoughts will actually start to die down, and you'll actually be living true to who you are. So you are such a great example of doing the work and of doing the work on yourself. And I'm so happy that you have spared an hour of your day to come and chat with me, because you are such a beautiful human. Thank you so much, Kylie.
Thanks, babes. And just remember, people, it's gratitude. Like, I remember I just flicked through my gratitudes journal just that I started the last year. And back in the beginning when I was doing the work, like I was writing, I thank you, you know, I'm really grateful for the man who's out there who's doing the work for himself as well. I can't wait till we cross paths. Like I was already believing that he was out there. So it's not like I've been like, oh, I don't want this and I don't want da 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 da. Yeah, I put out the don'ts, but I also then put out the gratitude of being thankful for when he does enter my life, that I will know that I know. Yeah. And that's exciting. Like that's the exciting part.
Yeah.
And you hear those romantic stories of like, oh, we just knew. And it's like, as if. It's like, I believe in it.
And you know what? I'm going to have you back, and we're going to do another episode, and I'm going to track your journey, because I love this. I love everything that you bring to the show. I love your energy and the inspiration as well. And, you know, you're just like, it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen, because I've written it down, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful. And this is my path. And that is so good.
Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, lovely. All right. To anybody else out there that's missing this live, it will be available on YouTube and Spotify. So don't forget to click like if you've liked this, or hit the subscribe button. So thank you so much for joining me. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
How good. All right, Zoom's still on, so you can press stop on Zoom. Oh, she's got the sound off.
Oh, hey, you're still here.
I was waving at you.
Can you turn on your mic? Oh, wait.
It's your end, I think.
Hey.
Yay.
Can you hear me?
Done. Yeah.
Oh, I can't hear
you. Your end's on mute, not mine.
Oh, there. Hey, thank you so much.
Yay.
Second legend, girlfriend.
That was great.
Thank you. I just like, I really loved your story. And there are so many people out there that are just stuck in this shit. So many
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. You're amazing. Where are you now?
So this is the church. So I'm at the church right now, and I've got a meeting here at 12:30. So I'm going to have an egg. I'm going to have some eggs on toast, and then yeah, and we've got some stuff to chat about because